contracts and so on to go through. So it's a very different way of looking at things. I would suggest this is the future. The business needs to focus on the customer, because the brand is what the customer says about us. The brand is in their hearts and its minds. It's not what we say it is. We can't force it on other people. We have to create something that attracts them. And so that's where this idea of the offering comes in. There's a management guru, I call him, a guy called Peter Drucker, who his thinking is in a lot of business schools and universities across the world. He wrote a lot and around this kind of concept. He actually says the purpose of business is to create and keep a customer. The purpose of a business is not to first and foremost create products or services. The purpose of the business is to focus on the customer and then create the products and the services to help the customer become stronger. So that's the mindset that we need to have. And so to do that, we need to have a strategy or a series of strategies. I'm going to actually suggest to you in a minute that businesses, modern businesses, really need to think about this from almost having 7 strategies. And I'm going to briefly touch on those in a minute. But before we go into that, what is a strategy, business strategy? This is a sort of a very fancy word, and it can sort of scare people, particularly startups or entrepreneurs who perhaps are in small businesses. What is a strategy? Well, simply put, all it is a plan, right? And when you start a business, often you have a plan in your mind, and that's great. So you've probably got a strategy, but the problem that you've got is that as you grow your team and as you grow your company, and this is very hard to then articulate if you don't get it down in some way that you can communicate. If you don't recruit people against it, you'll find that some people have a completely different way of doing things, a different way of thinking. You need to really articulate the plan to everybody. And the plan may change and the plan evolves as time goes on. So having a plan and a system and a way of thinking about things to help bring the business into the future is important. And particularly after COVID, plans need to change. We need to adapt, we need to pivot, we need to innovate. But at each step, we need to put the customer at the heart of our thinking. Because as I said, the brand is the meaning that they attach to us and our offer. It's not a logo, it's not a set of fonts. It is the meaning they attach. So how do we get that meaning and how do we pull it all the way through a business? Well, here's a suggestion of some of the key things that a business needs to think about. I'm going to talk to you all about this in the remainder of our time together. So I believe businesses need these sort of 7 strategies. And again, they don't have to be really complex. I think we kind of, in business, sometimes we make things so complicated with loads of PowerPoint slides and loads of Excel spreadsheets and numbers and pie charts. And it can become really, really complicated. But you can do this in a very simple way. In fact, I think the simpler you can create these strategies and articulate them, the better, because they need to be easy to be understood and by everybody within an organization. So there's 7: brand strategy. I'm going to talk about that. Commercial strategy, communication strategy. I call it a smarketing strategy. I'll tell you what that is in a minute. A customer strategy, a people strategy, and an innovation strategy. Now, the reason I've sort of put the 2 circles on the right-hand side of the screen is because these strategies, they have to be designed. They have to be thought through, and they have to be created usually in a big organization, by the leaders of the organization. They need to be designed. They have to be purposeful. You can't just magically have them. This is why a lot of businesses get in a lot of trouble, because they don't sit down with their teams and plan. And that is the key thing. They need to all align around these things. So that's my other sort of circle there, align. If your leadership team has sat down and defined these and aligned around them as a leadership team, then they can orientate all the teams underneath them to align to these strategies. And if you don't do that, you're going to splinter your efforts. People are going to be pulling in all sorts of different directions. Even your leadership team, if you don't create space for them to think through some of these things, chaos is going to happen. And so that's where you get politics and tensions and problems if you don't set these things up early. But if you haven't, it's okay, because there's still, you can still take time out to look at these things. And they, as I say, they don't have to be ridiculously complicated once you grasp the key aspects. So my aim of the next sort of few minutes is to really give you some basic sort of clues as to what might go into these strategies, what they are, and how you could hopefully use some of this thinking in your business, or if you're in marketing and design in your clients' work with you as we kind of try and navigate the corona seas and beyond that we are sailing in. So the first one is the brand strategy. I'm a brand guy, right? So for me, this is always number one. This is the most important thing that a business needs to define. And it's this, in my view. Well, actually, before I go into that, it's kind of, why would we do this? What's the point, right? Why would you have a brand strategy? Why would you try and create a plan as to how you want people to have meaning when they come across you and your offer? That's what a brand strategy is. The purpose of it is to really help simplify decision-making, be that your decisions that you need to make as a leader or a leadership team, or customers. Like, why should one customer buy from you and not somebody else? And finally, employees. Decisions that your people are making are super important. We're going to touch on that in the people strategy. But without having a brand strategy in place and understanding what you stand for and why you exist, it's very, very hard to flow that meaning throughout all of the touch points that both your employees come across and your customers come across. I'm going to talk to you about how important that is in a minute. So what would a simple brand strategy begin to look like? Well, this is a tool I use. It's called the strategy triangle. It's dead simple. It asks 4 key questions, like, why do we exist? Who do we exist to serve? Sorry, there should have been something else there. I've got some problems with my slide deck, so please forgive me. But basically, the why in there is why do we exist beyond making money? Why is it this brand has been set up? What was broken in the world to make the founder of the organization set it up? What drove them to do that? And then we've got the who. This is a very important one. Who do we exist to serve? And this is what I was saying before in my sort of preamble. You need to know your tribe, right? Who are the people that you have set this business up to help? You mustn't start from the perspective of, well, I make this product and therefore I'm going to run around and find anyone that wants to buy this product. That is the old way of thinking. What you need to do is think about, who do I exist to serve, and focus on them. Why do we do that? Why do we need that approach? Because if you have a product, soon enough, that product is going to become out of date. It's going to not solve the problems that need to be solved for you to add value to the market. So you need to put the customer first in all of your thinking. And so that's why that question is really important, who we serve, because the needs and the goals and the challenges of the customer might change. And so we then need to flex and change with the needs of the customers. Think of COVID, think of the problems that we're in. Are you trying to sell your product still to the same people who are looking at your brand and thinking, that's not relevant to me anymore? If you are, you've probably got it the wrong way around. You need to define who you're looking to serve, and then look at the products and the services you're bringing to the market to help them. Okay. How's an important question. How are we going to conduct ourselves? How are we going to really live into our vision for the future and our why and our purpose? What values have we got? What's our mission? What are we going to get out of bed every day to try and achieve? How are we going to show up for our customers? And then finally, and I say finally because I think this is the key one at the end, what is our offering and promise? What is it that we are bringing to the market to help our audience, that fulfills our purpose and is in line with our values and mission? And then I add a little circle, a little Matt Davies circle. Here's one key thing to think about. Where in all of these different triangles are we different? Because, if we're just a Me Too brand, there's no need for us. There's other brands that are doing what we're doing. So here's the key. Where are we different? We might be different in who we serve. We might be different in how we do what we do. We might be different in actually the products and the services that we bring. But here's the thing, we need to be different somewhere in order to add value. Otherwise, we become commoditized, and it becomes a very difficult business to manage from a brand perspective. Values. I talk a lot about values. Very, very important, because you can hinge a lot of your business management in them. You know, I like to show this diagram. If an issue arises, if you've got specific rules, right? Everybody has specific rules, laws that have to be adhered to. If an issue arises, though, in a business outside of those, right, then the employee has no idea how to handle that issue. But if you've created brand values that surround the actual things they have to do, in other words, sort of a series of guides of this is how we expect our employees to behave, this is how we as a brand behave, then what that means is if an issue arises outside the specific rules, it allows an employee to make a judgment call and base it on the values which the business has agreed to. So that's why values are super important to define, but not only define, and I'll talk about this later in the people strategy, you've got to actually use them in a way, in a management way, again, to help control the meaning that people attach to you and your offer. This is what I was talking about in terms of different. You know, we need to know what we stand for, but also we need to know what we do not stand for as a business. And you can't be all things to all people. This is what I was saying about the old model where factories producing something and everybody's running around trying to sell that thing to anyone that will buy it. Well, you're not standing for anything. You're not meaningful to anyone. You're just trying to make money. And that's great for you, but it's not great for everybody else. So, you know, if you stand for something, that needs to be part of your brand strategy. This is what we will do. This is what we will never do. This is what we value. This is what we do not value. This is what we believe. This is what we do not believe. These are all key questions of the brand strategy, which needs to define, as I say, why we exist, who we exist to serve, how we're going to behave, and what we offer. Very high level, but it needs to be clarified and defined for all aspects of the organization. Nothing to do with your logo and the fonts, see? Right, what about a commercial strategy? The rest I'll go through relatively swiftly. The commercial strategy, of course, everything has to be grounded in commercial thought. You can't just have a business that is going to lose you money. That it won't survive. And so, you know, this is in here for all the finance people and all of the people that really think about the money side of things. But here's the thing: in my view, you shouldn't start with the money, right? The money should only be there really to sustain and grow the business. This is my view. Obviously, people will make a profit along the way. Obviously, that's something that we'll need to pay our staff with and our suppliers with. But that shouldn't be the primary focus. Remember what I said at the start. The primary focus is to create a customer. So we have to define the meaning that we want the customer to attach to us. We have to create something that is going to be useful and meaningful and valuable to that person. And then once we've done that, we need to look at commercial ways to sustain ourselves, to continue to serve those types of people, that tribe of people. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this because I think, you know, we're very good in business at doing it, but I think quite helpfully, you know, like a SWOT analysis is very helpful in terms of a commercial strategy, you know, to look at what's external and internal, what's helpful and what's harmful. So you look at strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and you can put the things that are coming up in terms of your plan for the future in these areas. Okay. So there's a couple of people who have not muted their microphones. I'm just wondering if it's worth just kind of asking you to mute, please, if that's okay, just so that we don't get too disturbed. Thank you very much. So let's go into the communication strategy now. What does that need to contain? Well, a few things here. What's the purpose of it? Well, the purpose of a communication strategy is to define how the brand communicates, obviously, inside and out. Like, what's its personality? Like, how do we show up? As I said, you remember I said, like, the brand is almost like a person, and it dresses a certain way, it speaks a certain way, it does things for us, it behaves a certain way. All of these things, you know, they don't happen by accident. They're defined. And so this is defined in how we communicate to the outside world, and also on an internal level to our staff. And so I suggest that really